I get that ready.
Yep.
So, hi everyone. Welcome to Introduction to Agile Frameworks with Mac in collaboration with MYOB. So, before we start today's event, I wish to acknowledge the people of the Kulin Nations on whose land we are gathered today. My name's Catherine, and I'm the Events Director at Monash Association of Coding. We call it MAC for short. And thank you so much for coming today. I know it's a busy time of semester and the year, so thank you. Before we begin, I would just like to introduce our club and who we are. So we're a coding club that focuses on imparting valuable technical skills and industry relevant experience to students. Our ultimate goal is to foster the programming culture at Monash and to provide a collaborative setting for students to do projects and learn from one another. And we do this by delivering technical workshops. And what sets us apart is that everything we do produces a result and at the end of the day adds value. So don't forget to check us out on social medias, which we can put in the chat. But yes, thank you. And I'll be passing on to our presenters today from MYOB, Eleanor and James.
Hey, everybody. Cool. Yeah, thank you very much, Catherine, for that. Thank you to Mac as well for having us here. And thank you to you guys for taking the time. I'm James. I'm joined by Helena. We are both, from MYOB. We are in the Protégé program, which is MYOB's graduate program, just kind of entry-level program for graduates and career changes. And we're today going to be leading a workshop about the Agile Framework. So do we have the presentation there, Helena, that we can share?
I'm not sharing it.
I'm not seeing it. Are you guys seeing it?
On the Zoom screen, go down, is there a share screen button?
Yeah, I did, but let's do again. Sorry. Share.
Yep, it's the green one.
Yeah, I pressed it and I did share. So now
here we go.
Yes,
we got it.
See it.
There we are.
I press the presentation.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Fantastic. So, yeah, today we're going to be running through Agile and two implementations of Agile, Scrum and Kanban. So firstly, we're going to be doing a general overview of what Agile even is, and then going further into Scrum. After that, we're going to be doing a short workshop exercise where we're going to be breaking you guys out into breakout rooms to do an exercise. Then after that, we're going to look shortly at Kanban, and then compare the two, look at the differences, look at where you might use one over the other. And then after that, dive into another short workshop exercise. And now, time is kind of at a bit of a premium. We've only got the hour and we've got kind of a lot of stuff to go over. So if we do end up running over time, we might nix one of the exercises, but we'll see how we go. We'll play it, but yeah. Awesome. Cool. Helena, do you want to dive into our first topic?
Yes, surely. So I would like to start with a bit of background information. So we've entered a new era quite a while ago, and technology made a shift of power from organizations to customers. And our work also changed. So before there were more jobs that were looking only for physical manual work. Now people are required to use more of their brains. And back then, Henry Ford was complaining that every time I ask for a pair of hands, they come with a brain attached. And that's because in his system, people were valuable only for the ability to perform a repetitive manual task. But that has changed. And with this change, Agile came. And in response to the new era. People are interested in delivering value for customers fast and without headaches. And that's what exactly Agile is doing. It's an approach to project management and software development that is focusing on delivering value as fast as possible to customers. And it's an umbrella term for all these keywords you can see on the screen. Scrum and Kanban are just two frameworks from Agile. They are the most famous, and we will talk a little bit more in detail about them. But there are also others, like Crystal is another framework. It focuses only on individuals and their interactions. And there is, for example, extreme programming. It's another framework that aims to produce high quality software and high quality of life for the dev team. For example, SAFE, it's the world's leading framework for scaling Agile across enterprise. And so on. And everything with Lean, you can see on the screen, Lean UX, Lean Startup, Lean Manufacturing means basically zero waste. And for example, Lean User Experience is a method to create any web offering that is visitor-centric. So give only what visitor wants, the rest is waste, don't show it. And so that's what Agile just is an umbrella term for all these frameworks and methodologies. And Agile values individuals and interactions more than processes and tools. It values working software more than comprehensive documentation, and customer collaboration is more important than contract negotiation, and responding to a change is more valuable than following a plan. And it doesn't mean that the items on the right are not important in Agile. They are as well, but in Agile, we value what's on the left side more. And modern Agile consists of 4 values. I will start with the first value, make people awesome. And to explain this value, I will give you an example of Agile in practice. So there was a challenge a while ago for a team to do something to encourage old people use public transportation more often. And these people were wondering what to do, what kind of app do we have to create? And the best solution was actually to go out to streets, to a bus stop, and talk to old people and ask them what would make them use public transport more often, why there is less of them right now there. And the answer was surprising, actually, because it surprised the developers. They didn't think of it, because what the old person said, they said that, oh, back then, the town was small, the city was a little smaller, and we all knew each other. The bus driver knew me. And the bus driver was saying, hey, Mrs. Smith, this is your bus stop. You can exit now. And now they are a little lost. They don't know which bus stop to exit, actually. And the solution was even simpler than anyone could think, because the solution was actually a buzzer, like the one that we receive when we wait for food in some food courts. And this kind of buzzer was basically buzzing when the person had to leave the bus. And everyone was happy. So this is about making people awesome, making the customer awesome and happy, delivering exactly what they need. And this involves solving usually complex problems. And for that, we need to involve many different perspectives, strong focus on the customer, and experimentation. And in my example that I provided before, all these 3 things took place. And this is also a very good example of design thinking. So that's what make people awesome value is. The next value I would like to mention is experiment and learn rapidly. We also could see it in the example I mentioned, that it is about experimenting. Go and try a few things, ask people. And Agile is designed for us to learn about the customer true needs. And we need to collaborate with them and use the feedback loops based on working software. So have a piece of software and ask, is it what you wanted? Yes, no, and tweak accordingly. The next value is making safety a prerequisite. And this is because safety promotes critical thinking and the brain work. First of all, we need to feel safe to actually make our creativity work. So every organization will make it a first thing, like the prerequisite. And the 4th value is to deliver value continuously. The best way to explain that is the next slide. So on this slide, you can see on top an example of not delivering value continuously. So in the business is providing a big plan of action. And even though the team is using Scrum, one of the Agile frameworks, it's not really delivering value continuously. It's putting all the job to be done once and then ship it to customer and like, voila, here it is. Usually this is not a good strategy, because when customer sees the final product, things happen that the customer is wanting to change something. It's not exactly what they expected. And to change that, it's really, really difficult. What's better approach is to have a plan chunked into pieces and deliver bit by bit. And once it's delivered, show it to the customer, get feedback, and based on the feedback loop, create the next chunk and build on top of that. And the first scenario when we don't deliver value continuously usually happens when some people think, oh, maybe we will cut costs because we will not have to deploy so many times. It's just deploy once, deliver once, done. And this is a very wrong approach, because actually in software there's a paradox that if you focus on cost, the cost will go up and quality will go down. But if you focus on the quality will go up and the cost will down. And that shows that example. So yeah, focus on the quality, never try to cut money, not to try to focus on the cutting costs while building software. And Agile is a mindset, and it's actually a growth mindset. And growth and fixed mindset are spectrums. So we all might show different mindsets on different situations, depending on what we're doing. And growth mindset person with growth mindset would say that challenges help me to grow. I like to try new things. A failure is an opportunity to grow. I can learn to do anything I want. And that's the growth mindset. And the fixed mindset person usually thinks, oh, failure is the limit of my abilities. Feedback is a criticism, and feedback and criticism are personal. I stick to what I know, and when I'm frustrated, I give up. So this is the fixed mindset person. And it's curious that some industries attract different mindsets. So usually, actually, accounting industry attracts fixed mindset, where that's just the rule, where the experimentation is not welcome, and you have to follow certain plan, and getting feedback and trying new things are not really that common. You just do the same thing similar way all the time. However, in software companies, amongst developers, it's proven that mostly these people show of a growth mindset. People with growth mindset are more willing to actually pursue development career, or being a software dev, or work in a software company, actually. And there are some ways, since this is a spectrum, there are some ways to promote one mindset over the other one. And that's the motive spectrum. So to awake the growth mindset in us, we need to have in our work play, purpose, and potential. And if you notice, this actually addresses the work itself and your identity. So if you are being motivated with these three things, then your growth mindset is promoted. However, when you are driven by the emotional pressure, economic pressure, or interia is a tendency to do nothing, to remain unchanged. That's when the motivators are the external forces, and the fixed mindset is promoted. So now that I explained a little bit what Agile is, I would like to dive into the first framework that we'll mention today, and this is called Scrum. So here what we see is actually Scrum Framework drafted around, and the entire thing we see here is a sprint, and sprint is one of the 5 events that Scrum is doing. So it's the sprint, what we see here. Then there's a sprint planning, daily Scrum, which is the stand-up, review, and retro. It also has 3 artifacts, and it's product backlog and sprint backlog, and 3 roles. I will talk about each of them in detail in a second. So starting with the roles, the 3 roles in Scrum are product owner, dev team, and Scrum master. And the product owner is actually the person who has the team who creates the product backlog. And the purpose of this product owner is the point of accountability and strategic direction of the product. This person needs to articulate clearly the strategy and vision of the product. So basically is the accountable person. Then the second role is dev team and development team. It's very important that it's self-managed because Scrum thrives on self-managing, self-organizing teams. There has to be a light set of constraints, and sprint, what we just have seen before, is an example of a constraint. And there has to be a way of showing your work back to others. And we use those constraints to self-organize. Central management is not really welcome. Also because central management is like a sugar addiction to teams. It can create a situation where you can just do what you are asked of doing. No need to think, just do, like old era. And so that's about dev team. And the third role, very, very interesting one, is actually Scrum Master. And Scrum Master role is to look after people. It's the agile coach, not teacher. Teaching is telling, coaching is guiding to find answers. So the role of this person is to ask questions and guide the team and everyone to find the answer together. This person facilitates events for developers and product owner and facilitates conflict and conflict management. This person needs to be very directive, say no when it's needed, and when someone becomes toxic, that's the person that has to stop it. Also, interestingly, this person has to actively do nothing, so the team self-organizes. Actively do nothing means don't go around and tell people what to really do, rather ask questions, make them find it out on their own. It's a very difficult role if you think about it. Someone said that it's like this person has to have an ability to hoard cats. Hoarding cats is like almost impossible task, right? So that's the Scrum Master, has to think why things happen. It usually is an extrovert and a person with very strong problem-solving capacity. The only person that cannot be a Scrum Master is the product owner, because product owner is looking after work, really, and Scrum Master is looking after people. These roles cannot be combined. However, anyone from development team can be a Scrum Master. Let's move on to artifacts. And the first artifact is the product backlog. So the product backlog is basically a list of things that are to be done. So it's to be done. It's an ordered list. It's not necessarily yet a user story. User story is like a little task to do by developer. And it's ordered by priority. It's not ordered by priority, it's ordered by value. And it's just like it sits there, all the tasks to be done are ordered and waiting to be picked up. And then we pick few from them to be the sprint backlog. And the sprint backlog is basically the list of things that we will do in the sprint now. And like it's basically the doing. It's the what and how, and it's a forecast. So it's what we aim for. We believe it's achievable at the time, but it's not a guarantee because there are no guarantees in software. And development team owns it. It's defined and estimated. So the points are given to everything in the sprint backlog. And sometimes we give points through spikes. And so we spike a thing, we see how much work has to be done, what kind of work it is. And and it's a group-based estimation. Then everyone in the team is discussing how many points we want to give, like 1, 2, or 3, and the points are based on complexity, not really on time, how much time it takes. And yeah, so that represents the doing. It's at the beginning of the sprint, and it's something we will go through and supposedly should be done at the end of the sprint. That's the forecast, right? And then the next artifact is the increment. And the increment is what's at the end of the sprint, which is relying on the definition of done. So we have to have a common definition of done. What does it mean? So to have it, we need to have a transparency, adoption, and inspection. And basically, we inspect what's done and we adopt when necessary. So we look at the end, what have we done in this sprint, and do we have to create an extra backlog card? Maybe it's a tech debt and put it back in the product backlog to be picked up into the sprint backlog for the next sprint. So that's when the increment discussions happen around that. And let's move on to events. So the first event I would like to mention is the sprint. And I keep talking about the sprint. So basically sprint is the time we have to go through that sprint backlog, those items that we picked from the big backlog to our smaller backlog, and work on it during the sprint. Sprint can be 1 month or less. For example, in my team, it's a week, but every team has their own, whatever works for them best. At every beginning of the sprint, we have the sprint planning, and that's the second event Scrum is predicting. And there is a direction that 8 hours of sprint planning for 4 hours sprint. No, sorry. Yeah. For example, no, sorry. So if, for example, if we have, if in my team, I have 1 week of sprint, my planning should take 2 hours. It's 2 hours for one week. And it will be 8 hours for a month. So for 4 weeks of sprint will be 8 hours of planning. So this is like a direction of how long the planning should take. And actually, usually it does take this much. There is no really a way to shorten it usually in the team. And this is when we are breaking down the work into smaller chunks, and we are choosing the items that we're gonna work on. So we basically look at the big list of things that has to be done, and we estimate what we will do in this week. We give points, and we hope we're gonna deliver on time. Usually we do actually, but it's just estimation, of course. So the plan doesn't have to be perfect, as it says, because it's really hard to, there's really no guarantees in software. So it's a plan, yeah, what we're gonna do in this sprint, the week, let's say. The next event is the daily Scrum, which we call the stand-up in our company. And in this meeting, only the development team has to be present. The Scrum Master doesn't really have to be there, but the Scrum Master makes sure that the stand-up is on, because that's the role of the Scrum Master. And it happens every day, and we all meet on that stand-up. We say what we have done yesterday and what we're gonna do today, and maybe what problems we encountered, what are the roadblocks, if we can maybe solve together, if we need a hand. It's a very short meeting. The next event is the sprint review. So it's a strategic review of the product. And the directions are that if the sprint is 1 week, then only 1 hour of the sprint review should be there. And it's a place where we can chat what we have done. It's a feedback loop. So we tell what we've done, maybe what could be done better. It says it's not a demonstration. It's not really a demonstration, but it's a little bit like telling what and how we have done, really, actually. Some people make it a showcase, like a domain showcase, and that could be a sprint review. So yes, that's a sprint review. And the event 5, next event, is the retrospective. The retro meeting is for all 3 roles, and it's so that we can inspect and adopt. So we stop, we go back, and we address what's undone to keep going forward, basically. We see what went wrong, what went well, and based on that, we come up with improvements. But the most important thing is to really stop and think, did we address everything? You know, not to hurry, because again, if we really hurry, if we think, oh, there is no more, that, again, the cost orientation, that there's no more time, we have to do fast, let's say, and the cost is the most important, then we might create a lot of bugs, forget about things, and that will create much bigger problems in the future and much bigger costs. Hence that paradox that I mentioned earlier on, that focusing on cost will make the cost higher because of that. Imagine you hurry, make a lot of bugs, and then on top of that, create more software, and how to even stop and go back and fix those bugs. It will be almost a nightmare. It's best to catch it early, and retro is one of those moments as well to stop, think, and review. That brings us to the first exercise. And this exercise is about what to do. So there's a problem. Christine is a product owner working on a new release of a product. And there is the team that has estimated the items in the release that require 100 units of work. And the team historically velocity was 13 units of work per sprint. So they're doing 13 little stories per sprint. And based on this, Christine managed to estimate that the next release will take 7 sprints. And the product backlog is stable, and work is 3 sprints underway, and not all functionality was fully tested yet. They estimate that the missing testing would have required 10% more time. But the Christine wants to release an early version to customers, and in order to get the feedback. But she's worrying about the work, the missing testing work. What do you think she should do? Should she release it early and get the feedback fast from customers, or what? It's, you know, sky's the limit. It's up to you.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm dropping a link now into the chat. This is an invite link to a Miro board that we have set up. So that one's in the chat right now. You can go ahead and click that one. What we're going to do is split you all into breakout rooms. I was aiming for, I think we have 34, 33 people. So we're going to do teams of 5. We've got, I think, 8 teams listed out there. I don't think we'll need all of them. But yeah, I think your breakout room will have a number associated with it. I think it goes breakout room 1, 2, 3. Just match yourself up to the team number, to the breakout room number. We'll go for about, okay, we're dragging things through. Let's get that back. Basically, hop into, once you hop into your breakout room, go into your team, and then you'll be with your team, having a chat, and for as much as you can, making little sticky notes. You can see on the side there, there's like a little menu. You can grab a sticky note and chuck it into your team's box, and write as many things as you can on suggestions for the hypothetical and what you think Christine should do in this situation. So yeah, we'll jump into teams. If anyone has any problems with the Miro board or with,
just message me.
Yeah, just send through a message to Catherine. Awesome. So yeah, we'll get that set up, and yeah, I think Helena and I will be going around and having a look. It's exercise number 1, by the way, on the board. That one to the left. So yeah.
Okay, I'll open them up.
Fantastic. Awesome. Yeah, I guess let's have a quick chat about the answers that we've got. Team one, does anyone want to give a quick kind of overview of the main stuff that they talked about there in your kind of breakout room?
Yes, I can.
Great.
Main stuff is, so first off, you should, what's her name? Sorry, Christine should recalculate the units again and then see how the time is tracking. But while she's doing that, she should also consult with her team on their current sprint tasks and how likely they are to finish certain tasks that are needed. And then in that case, you should like prioritize the most important features and then try to release those first and focus on that. And if there's like a testing team or something, because it mentions they're worried about missing testing work, then she should also consult the testing team and check their priorities and see whether they can start doing it a bit earlier.
For sure. I think that's you've raised some really good stuff there, especially around, what Agile sort of is all about, which is kind of reevaluating your priorities and the work that you want to do. I think that's a really good point. Yeah, on the testing stuff, I mean, ideally, I think your whole dev team is in themselves in charge of the testing. So you've got your dev team. There's no real, or there can be a kind of a QA and dev split, but typically everyone sort of has charge of that kind of stuff themselves. So I think, yeah, I think it's a good idea to sort of have that reprioritization with the focus on testing to make sure that everything's up to scratch. I think that's a good idea. Cool. Anything to add on that, Helena?
No, I think it's really, really good discussions were going on. I was spying on few rooms, and yeah, that's exactly the answer. You have to stop, look back, and do unfinished work, and that was the 10% of testing. And I'm really, really happy to see in several boards that like there are sentences like ensure the code that is released is fully tested. Wow, that's bang on. That's exactly the answer. And I have seen it across other teams as well. So well done.
Yeah. I think that kind of cuts to the core of it. And for the sake of time, I'm going to say great job, everyone. We all did great. And going to skip right along to the next part of the presentation. Good job, everyone, especially those who made the cool smileys in Team 2. All right. So we're going to get, Helena, if you can grab the presentation back up.
Can you see my screen?
Team 2 for the win.
Yes.
Correct. I can't see the screen yet, but that just might be on my end. Can others people see that?
Oh,
here
yes,
we go. I got it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'll just start.
Let's keep it rolling.
Yep.
Sweet.
Kanban.
Kanban. Let's do it. Next slide. So Kanban is another implementation of Agile, much like Scrum. It actually comes. It's like from the 50s or whatever. It's from the Toyota production system. So when in Toyota, when they were making their cars, they developed a system for visualizing the work that had to be done and maintaining a high level of production. Kanban itself means can is visual and ban is signal. Essentially just meaning the work that has to be done should be visualized, and so the whole team is on the same wavelength. The focus is on ensuring the team's work is visualized, their workflow is standardized, and all the blockers and dependencies are immediately identified and resolved. And then the work revolves around a board, a Kanban board, which visualizes the work to be done by the team. So we'll hop over to, this is actually an example of a typical Kanban board. You might find this, there are tools like online, like Trello and Jira and stuff like that, sort of all have implementations of this sort of way of doing it. Typically, you'd find Kanban boards are split into 4 sections. So there's the stuff that's to do, which is kind of your backlog, in progress, code review, and done. So yeah, in a way, it's kind of similar to Scrum. What the difference here is that this is one continuous flow rather than sprints of work. So you'd have more or less your whole backlog in the to do, I'm pretty sure. Cool. So Kanban is an evolutionary approach to Agile. There's 4 principles. Start with what you do now. So if you're adapting your current work to an Agile, to a Kanban sort of way of working, do the level of work that you do currently and adapt it to this flow. Agree to pursue incremental evolutionary change. Respect the current process, roles, and responsibilities. So instead of having those three sort of roles of the Scrum Master, the devs, and the product manager, it's sort of everyone sort of shares that current framework, however they were working beforehand. And encourage active leadership at all levels. So again, it's not too hierarchical. It's kind of everyone is in this team together, getting this workflow done. And we'll go over these 6 practices together. So the first one, we'll move on to this next slide. First one is to visualize the workflow. Essentially, yeah, as I was saying before, it's all about mapping out that work, and mapping out how it flows. Cool. Moving on. Limit the work in progress. So ideally, you'd want most stuff to be either ready to start or done. You don't work on too many things at once. You'd kind of split your team up into different groups. Either people would be soloing on the different tasks to do, or working in pairs or mobs. Whatever workflow for the team is most efficient. Yeah, so as much as possible, you want to prioritize not having as much stuff in progress and just sort of doing bite-sized chunks more efficiently. Manage flow, which kind of comes back to what I was saying before. Flow is your movement. You can see here, this is a typical sort of analysis chart of a sprint or a flow. You want, your kind of time between being in progress to being done to be as short as possible. And then you also want time from the card even coming into play, even being ready to start and being done. That's called your lead time. So you really want to sort of, as you keep going along, keep measuring the flow and finding ways to optimize it. Fast, smooth flow means your system is creating value quickly. And then identify also what are the bottlenecks in your system. If you find that certain cards or certain sort of areas of work take longer, or there are some work you can do before another piece of work that would create an easier flow. It's all about visualizing what that flow is and how it can be optimized. So you're kind of constantly looking back and saying, oh, actually, we can optimize this by swapping out these pieces of work and doing this in this order. Next up is to make the process policies explicit, to make it really clear how your work is going to be moving. Vocalize a lot of the things about what work is going to be done. Make your processes clearly defined, published, and socialized. People will be less likely to participate in something they don't understand. So I think oftentimes with workflows, you can all sort of have a meeting and everyone comes out of that meeting assuming, okay, it's probably this or that or the other, or I have no idea what's going on. If there's something, literally physically very visible that comes out of that, an artifact that comes out of that meeting, it's an easier kind of reference point, a point of truth for what you guys are actually aiming to get done. Definition of done and definition of ready are explicit policies. So for example, in the team that I have, after we finish every card, we tick off a bunch of boxes of what is the definition of done. We have, achieved the acceptance criteria. We have done X, this and that and that. It is clear, it is explicit. Moving on. Feedback loops. Use whatever feedback loops make sense. When we were talking about Scrum, we, mentioned these events, these stand-ups, reviews, and retrospectives. With Kanban, that's like not strictly necessary, but it can be sort of a good tool for, as I mentioned before, looking back over your flow and finding places where you can optimize and all that kind of stuff. So it's all about setting up these very clear, ways of working that whatever works best for your team. And then number 6, improve collaboratively using models and the scientific method. So I guess this comes back to what I was saying with like analyzing your flow, your work in progress limits, stimulate conversations about process problems, things which impede flow should be discussed. And you can kind of experiment with different workflows It's just about being critical of the process and continually adapting. Whew, I think I got that out in time. You may have noticed I'm rushing a little just because we're running a little bit out of time. But yeah, that's about the core of Kanban. It is sort of, I think generally speaking, you're more likely to come across Scrum when you're in an actual work environment. But it's good to know about Kanban and kind of the differences between the two, which we'll get into right now.
Right. So Scrum versus Kanban. So if you imagine a hose with water and you open and you blast all the time everywhere, that would be Kanban. And if you open, direct, blast for 2 minutes, close, change direction, blast again, that's Scrum in a nutshell. And so Kanban is easy to adopt relatively, and because it's like map out what has to be done, visualize how much work is there in the system, put limits, easy to get going, right? And it's iterationalized. There's no iterations, so you can lose the focus. Actually, we should do this, but it's never done. And then the benefit of the Scrum in this case, because that's Kanban, what I just mentioned, but Scrum is forcing us to stop and do retro and look back. And Kanban sometimes can mask chaos. It doesn't mean that it's bad or good, like Kanban is worse or Scrum is worse or something. It's not like that. It's actually not Scrum versus Kanban, but it should be and, because that's when the magic happens. And there is the directions also that that Scrum is good for long-term projects and for projects that are discovery-based, like cross-functional teams. And it's Scrum is like focus on the team that does the work. It's a team sport. And Kanban is rather a reactive work, and it never stops, no iterations. It's good for support teams, DevOps teams. They know how much they like for those teams that it's uncertain how much specification will come through. It's more repetitive work also. For Kanban works well for if you have more repetitive work. And as I said before, why Kanban can mask chaos? Because it allows us to change our mind on daily basis. So it can kind of mask bad planning. It allows us to change direction very, very quickly. There's no iterations, no sprints. So that's the quick summary of Scrum and Kanban. And remember, it's never versus, actually, it's and. If you can mix and match, Kanban is telling you can use these artifacts and these things from Scrum, and it's really best because when you do hardcore Scrum, you have to stick to those artifacts and the events, and it not always works for every team. So if you feel like skipping some artifacts, that's when you mix Kanban in, and that's the magic.
Yeah, I think the kind of core of it is to not feel like you're stuck in one implementation or the other. If you kind of get, some percentage of a way into a project and find that, oh, actually, maybe it's better if we pivot to this. I mean, that's what Agile is all about, is just sort of constantly reevaluating your work and not feeling too closed into one implementation or the other. Cool. So we have this other, although I'm realizing it is, we're kind of on the dot. So instead, I think first we'd probably, if you guys have any questions or anything like that, we can kind of get into those first, and then we can have a look at that exercise if we got the, if people want to stick around.
Yeah, that sounds good. I would say, yeah, if you do have to leave, thank you for coming. There will be a follow-up email. I'll send out all the resources and the link to we'll upload this on YouTube, so I'll send that out as well. And we just put in the chat now a feedback link. I'll also send that as an email, but if you want to fill it out now, that would be great. But yeah, thank you for coming. And if you want to stick around and do, ask questions and do this activity, then feel free. But otherwise, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Can
Yeah,
continue.
anyone have any, and I mean, we've kind of come to the end of it. If anyone has any questions about both Agile and Scrum and Kanban and that kind of stuff, but also about myself and Helena and the work that we do over at MYOB, like feel free to just sort of sound off, either in the chat or just, unmute yourself. It's all cash.
I have a question.
Mhm.
You mentioned definition of done and definition of ready.
Yeah.
So I've actually never heard of those terms. Are those defined universally for each team, or is it project specific? Like, how do you define those terms?
I find team to team, it varies like specifically, because sometimes you'll kind of have a team that has to talk to a different team to, first sound off on to approve that a card is done. So maybe in their definition of done, it'll be like, oh, speak to such and such to get approval. So yeah, team to team, it sort of differs. What's important is that, it's set in stone, and it's kind of every card has to be going through the same set of rules.
Yeah, and this is decided by the product owner usually,
I think so.
or the
Yeah.
client. Okay.
Yeah, or also the team actually. For example, in our team, how we do it, we review each other's code. So for example, if I deliver a story, then we all look into the code that I submitted. We go through it. If we all approve, we are all developers in the team are happy with what I've created. We move it to the QA, the quality analysis, and our QA specialist is one person. I show her exactly how my code works. Like I show her where, like, she has a lot of questions, she tries to break it, and when she says, okay, fine, I couldn't break it, that's when we all agree it's done, and we can move it to a done column and forget.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm curious to just know more about like the work that you did, because you did the Protégé program, and maybe like what teams you're in. I'm not sure if I missed it, but yeah, I'm just interested to know what you like about what you've done.
Yeah, so I guess I'll give the pitch, the spiel about what the Protégé program is and how it's set out. So firstly, we do an intake every half year for different Protégés. I think the next intake that we're looking for will be, I think midway through next year will be the next one we'll be looking for, which I think you'll find soon if you kind of stay tuned to all our LinkedIn and our socials and that kind of stuff. You'll see when applications open for that. But yeah, essentially we take either graduates or anyone who's really looking to have a career change or anything. And here in the Sydney office, we take about 2 or 3 per intake. In the Melbourne office, it's a little bit more than that. So kind of you get some good chances in the Melbourne office there. And then also there's the Auckland office do an intake every half year as well. And yeah, the first 6 months of the Protégé program is called Acceleration. It is where you are paired with 2 either like senior or principal devs in the business who are your mentors. And you will speak with them daily, and they will give you advice on your code. And you'll be doing different exercises called katas that you'll just be working on day to day to get you up to speed on how we do our software development. And you'll just kind of be working within the business, doing those katas with your cohort. That'll be about 6 months. It's all self-directed learning. So if you take shorter, if you take longer, then you can just move on whenever. After that, you go into your rotations, which is what Helena and myself are both in. I'm in my first rotation with a team that is based in Melbourne. I'm in Sydney, but they're based in Melbourne, working on a concept called bank feeds, which is when different customers want to link up their bank or their historical transactions to one of our products. That's what we're in charge of. It's good fun, real riveting. It actually is. It's not a sarcasm. Yeah, it's and that's it's great. Helena, you're in your second or third? Second.
I'm about to go to the third one. So in the first rotation, I was in a team that was, it was called Agency API. It basically, I think it was the first team in MYOB. It's the API that is connecting everything, all the MYOB products, and it's talking to to the tax agent, so the government institution.
Mm.
And now I'm in a team that also takes care of an API, but a different one. So that's an in-house product that we are building from scratch, and it's basically to migrate customers from one service to another. So we made an upgrade, and this upgrade's for free for our customers, and we have to move everyone from the worst version to the better version. And we build that in-house API, and that's the team I'm part of. And the next team I'm going is a DevOps team, because as a Protégé, you can choose any team, and you can go like team shopping. So you can plan your rotations if you prefer API, backend, or front end, or DevOps, whatever, or maybe security. You know, it's up to you.
Yeah, you really get to just sort of explore whatever your interests are, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. You get to rotate and just try out what you want. I love
For sure.
that. Yeah, freedom. Did you want to move on with the activity, or if you don't have time, that's also fine. Up to you.
I think, what do you think, Helena? Do you want to do the activity? Maybe we ask, maybe we do it one by one and see what people think.
Yeah, what people think. If you guys are eager, we are eager.
Yeah, I mean, we can quickly just do it as a group if you like.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun one. It's a
So we have some myths and facts about
I want to know.
Scrum and Agile and Kanban and everything. So we'll list them off, I think, in the chat. I'll say one, and then everyone just kind of chime in whether you think it's true or false.
Okay.
So first one, the product owner cannot be a Scrum Master. So what do we think? True or false? Got some people chiming in.
That's
a lot of truths.
Yeah.
A lot of truths. And, for a good reason, because that is in fact true. That's as we were saying before, product owner cannot be Scrum Master. If you're in the dev team, you can be a Scrum Master, but not those product owner and Scrum Master roles have to be separate people. Good stuff, everyone. Second one, if you have a fixed mindset, if you don't like to be challenged. So if you're like, oh, I don't like to be challenged, that is something that someone with a fixed mindset might say. Is that true or is that false? Looks like, judging by the audience engagement, sí, señor. That's true. All right, very good. Moving on. Number 3, Agile is an approach to project management. What is? Ooh, what are you at? You had some ooey. True. A lot of people chiming in with true. That is another truth. We're stacking the truths. Look at this. 3 truths in a row. Oh, we never lie. Number 4, Agile, if you're using Agile, means having no documentation whatsoever with Agile. Is that true or is that false? We got some F's in the chat. It's false. You're right. It is not true. Well done, everyone. Number 5, Agile is an implementation of Scrum. Is that true or is that false? You tell me, chat. Is that true or is that false? Ooh, Got some question marks?
The other way around, I think.
Ooh, is it?
I don't know.
I think you're right. It is the other way around. That is false. Scrum is an implementation of Agile. Well noted. All right, this is fun. This is good. Little, Thursday evening fun. Agile, this is number 6, by the way. Agile encourages quality to be compromised for faster deployment. So you want to, really get it out fast. We got some falses. And you know what? You're absolutely correct. It is false. That's a false thing to say. Someone said fallass. They misspelt it.
I was so keen to just. Oh, that was me. I was just.
You compromise quality for faster deployment. This is not what we do.
That's not correct.
All right. Number 7. A developer can be a Scrum Master. Yes. Oh, that's tricky. Oh, that's tricky. Is that true? Oh no. Oh, it is true. It is true. I actually forgot that it was a thing that we have, and I actually said it earlier. So no, that's true. You're right. Next one. What's up? What's going on? This is number 8. Kanban is easier to adopt than Scrum, we can assume, in parentheses, than Scrum. Kanban is easier to adopt. Ooh, we've split the party. We've got some trues, some falses. What's Helena? What's the verdict?
Yes, Kanban is easier to adopt because it doesn't have all these iterations and the sprints and the artifacts, and it's way easier to adopt. That's why Kanban.
There you go. Now you know. Here we go. Second to last. Scrum is better than Kanban. Ooh, controversial. Is that true or false? Is that true or false? You tell me. Ooh. We got a lot of falses. We got a depends, which I like. We got an in the middle, and then another depends. Scrum and someone just said Scrum and Kanban, which is true. Which is what we were saying before. Not Scrum versus Kanban. Scrum and Kanban, which is a very good thing. Helena, what do you say?
Yeah, that's true. Scrum and Kanban. So it's nowhere like one is better than the other one. So we could never say that Scrum is better than Kanban. So that statement by itself is actually false.
There you go. Last but not least, work must fit into a sprint. Huh. Okay, what are we thinking here? We got some falses, we got some trues, we got some falses, we got some okays. Interesting. Helena, what are we thinking? What's the verdict?
Yeah, it's false. Work must not fit into a sprint. It
doesn't have to.
Yeah, taken into next sprint.
Yeah, you can just, ideally, you get a chunk of work, you want it to fit into a sprint, but sometimes, it doesn't have to.
Yeah, because it's a forecast. Like nothing is guaranteed in software dev, so it's not like it must. It's like we say we will do. Yeah, we do our best. It's a forecast. We think we can do it, but sometimes it's bigger than we expected.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you to Mac, to Catherine and everyone for having us here. This was a blast. Sorry we went over time. Thank you for anyone who stuck around.
Thank you so much for taking the time this evening, tonight, to do this. On behalf of Mac, thank you. And I hope everyone had a great time. That concludes today's session. Hope you learnt about Agile.
I hope so too. If anyone wants to reach out, has any more questions, you can probably find me on LinkedIn. I didn't plan to share any of my social stuff, but anyway, James Keogh on LinkedIn, seek me out. Stay tuned, of course, to MYOB on LinkedIn and all those platforms for future news about the Protégé program and how you can get involved and possibly, snag a job.
With and feel free to reach out to me too. I'm on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Yeah, guys, reach out if you have questions about MYOB, or reach out to us. I think our Discord was in the chat somewhere, or you can find us on all socials. Ask us questions, and don't be afraid.
Beauty.
Great.
Amazing.
All right. Thanks, everybody.